Hello BookTube, my name is Elizabeth. Welcome or welcome back to my channel, Book as in Books. This video is a tag video. It is the Why I Haven't Read These Books Yet tag. It was created by Greg from Another Bibliophile Reads, and he was inspired by a video from Crystal at Artsy Fiber. And the tag is very simple. You simply have to talk about books that you haven't read yet and explain why a little bit. Now it was tagged by Greg, so I will leave a link to his video as well as to Crystal's video in the description box below. I decided to do this tag using only books that I own. So books, paper books that I own from my giant TBR. I don't own ebooks, so I don't include them. And I don't include books that I have heard about and want to read, but that I don't own. So I've decided to use just books from my TBR. If you decide to do this tag, you don't have to use that restriction, but I think it's going to be more interesting if I use it. So prompt number one, a classic book. I love classic. So I have chosen one. This is Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe. Why I haven't read that book yet? Because first, for a long time, I didn't know it existed. You probably know that I went to school in French, and when you go to school in French, you learn about French literature. You don't necessarily learn about English literature. And you don't necessarily learn about American history either, because that book is quite linked to American history and the slavery and all that. So for a long time, I didn't know it existed. And once I knew it existed, well, I didn't read it because I didn't feel like it. And now that I own the book, why haven't I read it yet? This book is a representative of a whole bunch of other books. Let me get them. Ta-da! So these books all belong to the same collection. It is the Arcturus collection, or I don't know if it's a collection or publication house. And they are on sale at 3 for $10. Despite the lovely price tag there, it's 3 for $10 at Chapters. And I keep buying them, and I buy them more often than I read them. I buy them in packs of 3, so for every one that I read, there are 2 unread that are left. And I don't like this collection. The only thing that I like about this collection is the price. A lot of people love the covers. I think they're okay. They're not my style. I don't really care for the covers anyway. And I don't like this collection. I don't like the font. I don't like the spacing. I don't like that the margins are barely wide enough for my fingers. And the book keeps shutting like this. There's no flop. It's very rigid. Oh, this one is not that bad, but some other ones are like, yeah, just like a brick. And yeah, and the narrow margins means that if I put my finger where I would need to put them, I would cover the text, and that would leave a smudge. Because of course, 3 for $10, it's not super high quality books. So yeah, why I haven't read that book yet? I don't like this edition. And I have plenty more to go with it. Prompt number 2, a fiction book. For that, I have The Door by Magda Szabo. Why I haven't read that book? I will blame it on the smell of popcorn effect. Now, what is that? That is something I just invented. When I go to the movies, I park in the parking lot, and as soon as I get out of the car, I start to smell the popcorn. And when I'm in the parking lot, it smells so good. And I get close to the door and it smells so good and I want popcorn. Oh yes, I'm going to eat popcorn. And then I go into the cinema and I'm in the hall and the smell of popcorn is just sickening. I want to throw up. There's absolutely no way I'm going to eat that crap. It's just, ugh, it makes me sick. And then I go to my place in the cinema itself, in the screening room, and then I get used to the smell, I guess, and then I can decide whether I want to eat popcorn or not. And with books, it's a bit the same situation. When I hear of a book, at the beginning, I'm thinking often, oh, this looks really interesting. And then once it gets too popular, once it's everywhere on BookTube, I don't care for it anymore. I'm starting to get sick of the book. I don't want to hear about the book anymore. I don't want to read it anymore. And this is exactly what happened with this book. I bought it at the bookstore having never ever heard of it. I didn't know it existed until I saw it on the shelves in the bookstore, and I bought it. A few weeks later, it was the choice for Women in Translation Month. It was the group read. And then it started being just everywhere on BookTube, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I didn't want to read that book. I didn't want to hear about the book, so I still have it unread. Now, that was, I think, a couple of years ago now. So the smell is starting to fade, and I might soon be able to judge on my own whether I want to read this book or not. An other book that I could have chosen for the same reason is The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. When I started hearing about it, it sounded really interesting, and I found a copy at a used bookstore. And now that it's been just everywhere on BookTube, I don't want to read it anymore because it's just everywhere. So yeah, I may read this soon, but maybe not. Prompt number 3, a non-fiction book. I love music. I love classical music. In March, for March of the Mammoth, I read a massive biography of Beethoven. You can see it just right there. And this is the first 4 notes, Beethoven's Fifth in the Human Imagination by Matthew Guerrieri. And I've heard only good things about that book. It's supposed to be really, really good. I haven't read it yet, and I guess more than one reason. Well, in the past couple of years, it's because of the pandemic. I've stopped attending concerts like pretty much everyone else. And when not attending concerts, I guess I am less interested in music. And also, I've started reading it like twice, and every time I was interrupted by something. Once I was interrupted because I was going on a trip and I decided not to take the book with me, so it was put aside. And another time I was interrupted because I received books that I had put on hold from the library, and I give priority to books from the library, and I haven't picked it up since. So it's been on my shelves for like, I'm going to say 5 years. I hope it's that old. Yeah, published in 2012, so I've had it for 5 years at least, and I still haven't read it. And yeah, these are the reasons. They're not very good reasons, but yeah, it's the reason. Prompt number 4, a genre book. There are only 2 genres that I read. I read romance and I read mysteries. And here is a mystery that I've owned for at least 5 years once again, if not more. And that one is not translated in English. It is a translation from a Swedish mystery. It was written in Swedish. And I bought that at a time when Swedish mysteries were all the rage. You know, Millennium and a whole bunch of other authors. And I have never read in my life a single mystery from Sweden. A Scandinavian noir, they call it. I have never read a single one of them. So I bought this one because if you translate the title word for word, it would be Dead Poets Do Not Write Mysteries. So I thought, okay, a mystery about writing mysteries. That could be interesting, and I bought it. And I have never read it, and for some reason I'm just not interested in reading it anymore. I think I may unhaul it at some point because I'm just not tempted by the book anymore. Perhaps taking it off the shelf will make it look more interesting, but at the moment it's just meh. I don't care for Scandinavian noir or Scandinavian anything. Yeah, I just missed the boat, I guess. And finally, well, not finally, prompt number 5, the book owned for the longest time but not read yet. I have owned that book since I was 16 years old. 16 or 17. And in my last year of high school, I won a gift certificate to a local bookstore. It was a $25 gift certificate. And with it, I bought these. So this is a short story by Tolstoy. This is a short story by Maupassant. And this is a novel by Bulgakov. This is The Life of Monsieur Molière. And I've read these. This one, Madame Bovary, by Gustave Flaubert, I haven't read. I started it 3 times. The first time I think I read 5 pages. I was not really in the mood. The second time I read about 25 pages. I liked it, but really not that much. And then I read about 100 pages and just found it really, really boring. So basically this book just fell off my hand. The last time I tried it, I think I was 25. So that is going on 20 years ago. So maybe I'm due for another try. I still have the book. The book is still here, still available to be read, but it's unread. Well, technically it's a DNF, but it's not a DNF that makes me say, I will never read that book. I will never pick up that book again. It's a DNF that I lost interest. And now that I'm older, perhaps I would find it more interesting. Perhaps I wouldn't be as bored by a woman who made a bad choice in her life. Yeah, because at 25 years old, you can be, well, I was somewhat arrogant in the sense that I thought, well, people who make choices must live with their choices. Now that I'm a bit older, I know that not every choice is available to everyone and that it's not necessarily easy to make the right choice. So perhaps I would have a bit more sympathy for Madame Bovary. But at the time, I didn't have much sympathy for her, so I didn't care much for her. So yeah, maybe I'm due for a reread, I guess. So, and the last prompt is to tag some people. So I'm going to tag Alice at Alice in the Giant Bookshelf because she has a giant bookshelf and it probably has a bunch of books that she hasn't read. And I'm going to tag two people who read a lot because I'm wondering if there are books that they haven't read. I'm going to tag Lindy from Lindy's Magpie Reads. Lindy for a long time worked as a librarian, so she has read a whole lot of books. And today, now that I think she's retired, she's reading about one book a day. So are there books that she hasn't read yet? And the other person I'm going to tag is Marilyn Maya Mendoza, the baby boomer booktuber. As her name says, she has been around for a little while and she has been a reader for a little while. So I'm wondering if now there are still books she hasn't read yet. So, yeah. These are the people I tag. And of course, if you feel like doing this book, feel free to do the tag. If you feel like doing this book, if you feel like doing this tag, feel free to do the tag. And as Greg said, you're allowed to modify the prompts. If these prompts don't tempt you, you can change them. Basically, the idea is to talk about books you haven't read yet. So feel free to adapt the tag to what suits you. And that is it for me today. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. À la prochaine!